Are we on now?
Okay, I think we're on now. So let's go ahead and reintroduce. We just had a great 10-minute conversation on lots of different things. Welcome to the Ed Morrissey Show.
Are we on?
We are on. Yes,
we
said 4 p.m. Eastern time on April 1st.
That's you, not me.
No, that's me. That's just because I had the. There we go. Now we are on. Today is April 1st, April Fool's Day. I guess this was an April Fool's gag.
April Fools.
See, even when I have a producer, Dwayne, we have open source production values here at the Ed Morrissey Show. Thanks to the chat room folks who let us know that we were not actually on the air. Myself, Ed Morrissey, Dwayne,
hey,
Generally
at
Small
least
Patterson.
we thought we were on the air.
We thought we were on the air. We did. We had a 10-minute conversation just assuming y'all were listening to us. We're going to start over again on this conversation because it's a good conversation to have. First off...
Okay, that's enough.
That's good enough. All right, so there you go. So we had some theme music in there, too. There we go. Excellent.
He's Ed Morrissey. I'm Dwayne Patterson. We were talking about all sorts of stuff. Yeah, we're moving. I know people on the West Coast think it sucks. Everybody on the East Coast, you're going to love it. We're going to drive the news cycle. Why are we going to drive the news cycle? Let's talk about what happened yesterday. How's that for catching up in 10 minutes?
That's pretty much good. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have talked the 10 minutes.
Okay, so Karl Rove was last night. Karl Rove went into the chat room, or everybody in the chat room is going to hear Karl Rove and go, dirty, rotten, blankety, 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 blank. Well, okay, Karl Rove, say what you want about him. He won 2 national elections as presidential elections, the last one to do so for the Republican side. So I kind of take what he says a little seriously. He knows the rules. He was on the Rules Committee in 1972. He was the head of the College Republicans, and so he got an automatic seat on the Rules Committee in the 1972 convention. So he knows how these rule things work. And when he said that Ted Cruz is not exactly telling you the straight-up poop when he says that only Ted Cruz and Donald Trump can be nominated for president because of Rule 40, that's not exactly true. Carly Fiorina got a delegate. That delegate on the first ballot is going to nominate Carly Fiorina.
Right.
Marco Rubio had 168. My guess is, and he's keeping them, by the way. He's keeping those delegates.
He's going to try to keep them. There's still some interpretation about whether or not he withdrew. And
he's suspended, not ended.
It really depends on each state how they.
Correct.
So some of those delegates may become unbound anyway.
Some of them might, but he's going to try and save most of them. And it's not because he's doing it because he's going to magically parachute in as a candidate. I saw a lot of spin saying that was his ploy. That's nonsense. This is him saying Donald Trump cannot be allowed to get to 1237, and so he's trying to hold on to his delegates as just at least in the first ballot, so that they can't go to Trump. He's trying to deny Trump 1237, and
right.
I'm just fine with that, frankly. As far as a tactic or a strategy, that's fine. So Karl Rove's on last night, and he talks about the rules, and he says, look, anybody's going to be nominated. The only thing that Rule 40B says is that you can't have a nomination speech, and there can't be seconding speeches on behalf of a candidate unless that candidate has won the majority of delegates in 8 states. And that would be Ted Cruz and Donald Trump.
Right.
But, I mean, Jeb Bush got delegates. There will be votes put on the floor in the first ballot for Jeb Bush for president. You know, it doesn't matter how many states he won or didn't win. Now, the other thing that Karl Rove said was, you know, everybody's so sick and tired of this debacle, the clown car. They're so sick and tired of the process at this point and how ugly it's become. I think a fresh face might be the panacea coming out of the convention. And a fresh face means somebody not Cruz, somebody not Trump, somebody not Kasich, somebody different. Naturally, everybody went, aha, here we go. Here's the establishment here's what everybody said was going to happen. The whole thing was for nothing. The Mitch McConnells are going to take over the party again, and they're going to sub in who they want and jam it down our throats. See, that's not what he's saying. I mean, you know that. That's
no, I know that. I know that. That's not what he's saying. But and Cranky in the chat room is saying, well, great, nominate Fiorina. Well, here's what happens after you get past the first ballot. And in some cases, the first 2 or 3 ballots, because a few states have different.
Except there's even question on that too, because I've heard that there was actually court decisions saying it was unconstitutional for different states to have different rules at one convention as to binding delegates. There is actually some case law out there on
I'd find that difficult to sustain because it's a private organization.
I agree, but I'm saying there is case law out there that have been rulings on that, so that's even iffy.
Well, let's say for the sake of argument that all delegates get released after the first ballot, or we get past whatever binding
2 or 3 or whatever. Florida, I think it's third ballot.
So if you're talking about Fiorina, we'll use Fiorina as an example, and all of a sudden, the idea of Fiorina as a nominee catches fire. You can get 1,237 votes for Fiorina.
Sure you can.
And she'd be the nominee.
Absolutely.
Even if she didn't get a nominating speech and a seconding speech, she'd still be the nominee.
She would be the nominee,
yeah.
And you and I would support her in a second if that's how it turned out.
Yeah.
Of course we would.
Right.
We'd if that's who the delegates finally decided on. This is a papal enclave, is what this is.
Conclave, yeah.
Conclave. Sorry. We're looking for the white smoke out of Cleveland is what we're looking for.
Except everybody's going to be watching it. That's the difference.
I understand, but the process is similar, isn't it?
Well,
kinda?
It kind of is. Yeah, I mean, it kind of is if you take out the prayer and the Holy Spirit leading the people.
True, but what I'm saying is
that is sort of an important component of what happens in.
But you're putting a scrum of people in a room and closing the door and saying you're not coming out until we come up with who it's going to be. Right?
I agree. This is representative democracy.
Yes, it is.
It is, and Cranky T-Rex says, but everybody also has smaller hats at the convention. Actually, I think there's smaller hats at the conclave.
Not in Texas.
This offer not valid in Texas.
Exactly. So now. Getting back to what started this whole thing, which is why are we moving to the morning drive and why don't we stay where we're at because it would make the West Coasters happy, and right. I'm one of them. The reason why we're doing this is when we did the interview with Karl Rove last night, now it circulated and percolated all over the place overnight and today. I mean,
I saw it all over the place, yes.
It was all over the place. Now, imagine, if you will, if we would have done that interview with Karl Rove first thing this morning.
Yeah. Or first thing yesterday morning.
But
either way.
For the sake of argument today, since we're talking about what would be the first thing that everybody's talking about, and what would the buzz be right now?
Oh, Karl Rove, the establishment's trying to take over the nominating process, et cetera.
We would have driven the news cycle, would we not?
That soundbite would have been on every single broadcast channel. Absolutely.
The problem with where we are at right now existing, we can still do a lot, and it still makes news, but we kind of get our knees cut out from under us a lot of times because by the time we have a chance to interview somebody and even push it out before it airs sometimes, it's still after most of mainstream media has gone to bed, and it doesn't get as much of a pop or as much play as it could otherwise get. Whereas if we did this thing first thing in the morning, our goal long term is people are going to say Morning Who instead of Morning Joe.
Right, yeah.
That would be kind of a really splendiferous thing where if people were just turning on radios and saying, hey, did you hear this guy on Hewitt this morning? Instead of, did you hear what was said on Morning Joe this morning? I don't care what Mika Brzezinski thinks.
Yeah, the other thing, too.
We can make a lot more news this way.
No, true. And the other thing, too, to remember is that, drive time matters because when you're in the car, radio is really where it's at. I mean, there's satellite radio too, and that's
Sure.
there's a couple of political channels on satellite radio, but AM radio is really where it's at when you're in the car because it's really the only thing that's ubiquitous enough to reach a mass audience.
Right.
And in the slot that you're in right now, 6 to 9 on the East Coast, almost everybody's out of their cars by 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and certainly by 7. They're eating dinner. Even in my time zone. People might be in their cars between 5 and 6 for an hour, and after that,
it peels off.
It peels off. And so if you're on...
And don't get me wrong, we get a lot of people that listen to the podcast a little bit later, and that's fine, and that's going to continue in the mornings.
That will continue, yes.
But if we want to be influencing the campaign a little bit, we want to be more influential in helping driving the news cycle and having issues discussed that we all think we want to have discussed, then shouldn't we be at the front end of the news cycle rather than hang on to the tail of the comet?
And you can see, by the way, you mentioned Morning Joe. It's really a great example of that. People come on Morning Joe, and those clips go out. Maybe, Morning Joe's on from, I think, 6 to 9.
And let me ask you a question. Yeah. I mean, obviously the name of the show would change, but hypothetically, same show, it's on at 2:00 in the afternoon. Does it have the same impact?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, and that's the reason, by the way, because Salem Radio has a great lineup. We just had them all out in the Twin Cities, except for the new guy, Larry Elder. We'll talk about that in a minute. We had everybody out in the Twin Cities, and you have Dennis Prager and Michael Medved. But Dennis Prager and Michael Medved have different kinds of shows.
Yes, they do.
They talk about politics, but in a broader cultural context.
Michael has been known to maybe opine on the presidential campaign and which candidates are like his preference and which ones would not be his preference.
He was actually pretty clear about.
He's been known to make his opinion clear on that.
Yeah, Michael Medved was, and Mike Gallagher. And Mike Gallagher was out there as well. And Mike Gallagher and Michael Medved had a little bit of a
may have a different of opinions.
They had a difference of opinion.
Yes.
A collegial difference of opinion, but it played out on the stage in the Twin Cities, and so I mean, but Mike is the guy who follows the morning drive guy.
Right. He's only morning drive on the West Coast,
right.
And in a lot of the West Coast stations, he's even tape delayed till
a little
9
later
anyway.
in the after,
So he's the crossover guy between morning drive and when Rush starts, or when Dennis starts.
Yes, when Dennis starts and Michael gets the lead in. We're going to get to Larry Elder in a minute. But, I mean, this is a great move. And I remember when I first heard about this, because I heard about it a while ago.
And your initial reaction is, everybody's initial reaction is, oh.
Well, okay, so I got to be honest with you. There was a little bit of a selfish reason for that. I really enjoy guest hosting for Hugh on the occasions that I get a chance to do it.
So your initial thought is, I can't get up that early.
I'm going to have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I can't get up that early.
I'm going to have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get down to the 2:30 in the morning.
How do you think John Campbell felt?
Yeah, that's tough.
By the way, I've actually got him to guest host for one day.
Oh, that's great. Well, John's a great guest host.
He promised me he was never going to do it. In fact, he laughed at me saying, "I can't wait for the pitch where you tell me you want me to guest host, and I can't wait to tell you all the things you can go do with yourself." And so the day came, and he said, "Okay." I said, "You remember that conversation we were going to have?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "Is this it?" I said, "This is the conversation." Okay, I'm sitting back. I'm in my chair. My arms are crossed. Hit me with the pitch. So I gave him the date. He goes, "What's that date again?" I told him the date. And he looks down and he goes, "Ah, damn it." I go, "What?" He goes, "I have to give a breakfast speech an hour after we would sign off that morning." And I go, "Where's your breakfast speech?" He goes, "At the Lincoln Club right down the road here, like 15 minutes away."
Oh, yeah, the Lincoln Club. I know the Lincoln Club.
And I said, "What's the speech on, John?" He says, "Current events and politics and the presidential campaign." I said, "Oh, so what you're telling me is you almost have to do the show now because for the 3 hours leading up to it, that would be speech prep, and you got to be up anyway. Is that what you're telling me, John?" And he goes, "I hate you, but I'll do it."
Well, Hugh asked me in
you are going to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course you're going to do it.
He asked me, he says, "Would you still guest host the show?"
Of course you would.
I said, "Of course I would. Just have to get up a lot earlier in the morning." And he says, "Well, good." He says, I wanted to check with you to see if you're still willing to how can you give that up? Especially now that it's morning drive. I mean,
here's
come
the
on.
metrics of it. The long and the short of it is within a year, we are going to be on a path to have at least 50% more affiliates than we had going into it, like meaning as of today. And that's after adding a ton of affiliates this year because of Hugh's increased national exposure, doing the debates and doing all the TV appearances he's been doing. We've been adding affiliates left, right, and sideways this year. But even that, we're still going to be, because we're morning drive, we're going to be picked up on up to 50% more stations all over the place.
And
with an audience factor now of doubling plus what our audience size is. You got to do it.
And that's just a start. When it starts driving the news cycle, it's going to increase.
It creates its own.
Yes, it creates its own momentum.
Critical mass.
Absolutely. So I'm totally.
You got to do it.
I'm totally in. I mean, I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be a lot of fun. But I don't know when I'm going to get the chance to do it because there's already a lot of great guest hosts here, but I know I'll get an opportunity at some point.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and so it's a fabulous move. Now, the reason why the move is being made is because Bill Bennett's retiring. He's becoming a host emeritus.
He is becoming Brit Hume. For those of you who've watched Fox News for years, Brit Hume used to be the senior political guy on out of their DC bureau, and he ran special report from the network's inception until what 3-4 years ago. When did Brett Baer take over?
Yes,
something like that. And when Brit Hume finally said, I don't want to do this every day, but here's what I'm going to do. You're not getting rid of me. I'm not retiring. I'm just going to work whenever the hell I want to work. When I want to file a piece, I'm going to file a piece, and I'm still going to maintain my position as senior correspondent, and I'll do what I want to do when I want to do it. Tom Brokaw's kind of done that, right?
Right, yes. NBC, great example, yes.
So Bill Bennett's attitude is, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm still going to bring content. I just don't want to get up at crack of dawn every day.
Yeah, right. I mean, and the guy is retirement age. I mean, come on.
So he is still going to be around. He's just going to be basically he's going to be Salem Radio's Brit Hume. And so you'll still hear segments from Bill on our show, once, twice a week, depending on what he submits to us. And he'll send stuff in. So he's not technically going anywhere.
No, he's still within the Salem family, but he's just not going to be doing the show in the mornings.
But he's not hitting the brakes. That's our job.
Right, exactly. So we're going to get Larry Elder. Now, I'm very familiar with Larry Elder because when I lived out here in California, Larry was on the air.
The
and
sage
ever
of
since.
South Central.
Yep. And he's been doing a lot more, I believe, Fox News, but I think he's been on other...
yes. I think I've seen him on CNN. I think he's made some of the rounds.
Yeah, he's making the rounds as a talking head on the political shows. And so he's going to be the new 6 to 9 p.m. East Coast time. And
we wish him well.
And so looking forward to having Larry as part of the Salem group here. And got a chance to. Somebody wants to know: is the lighting in here really bad, or am I growing a beard?
Both.
I am growing a beard. Sargex was asking.
Sargex. Actually, I don't know if you happen to have a chance to see which one was it? Oh, it was the. It was a late show with Stephen Colbert, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday night. Michael Stipe was on. Now, Michael Stipe, for those in the chat room who aren't necessarily rock people, Michael Stipe used to be the front man for REM.
They broke up?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sadly.
Nice. I didn't know.
Michael Stipe is, he's at the age now where he's a little shy on the hair department up on top. About like that.
Yeah.
Now that he's quote retired from music, he's adopted the Dave Letterman approach where I shaved for 30 years, I don't want to shave again. So he now doesn't just have a beard, he has a beard.
Yeah.
He has the kind of beard that you can put file folders in and just store stuff in it, right?
Yes.
He's got one of those beards. And I kind of made reference that Ed kind of is starting to work on his Michael Stipe beard. But yeah.
I'm growing a beard. It puts about 15 years on the face, but it gives me an authoritative look, I think. And that's the and I had a little rash. I think I've told this story. I had a little rash underneath my nostril, and this is right before CPAC, right? So initially I was shaving over it, and that only lasted one time because
why didn't you go for the Bolton stash?
Yeah, so I was going to do one of these, just shave around it, but it would have left, just this, and that's a bad look for CPAC. So
yeah.
I decided that was...
Unless you're a Donald Trump fan. I'm kidding.
Oh!
I'm kidding.
April Fools!
Joke. I'm kidding.
Just kidding. So then I decided, well, I'll grow the mustache, but, a mustache with a shaved head, I just don't think it looks good. So I thought, well, I'll grow the whole thing out. And I kind of like it. Now, this is a matter of huge debate within my family. My daughter-in-law, at least initially, said that she liked it. My mother liked it. My mother's in the chat room. She can toss in her 2 cents on that.
Hi,
Mom. My wife, she's sitting across from me right now, and
a little nonplussed.
Nonplussed, but she's let's just say a little skeptical about it.
Yes, but you know what? She is a superdelegate.
She is a super delegate. She is a super delegate. This is true. She's a super delegate on this particular convention. My cousin, my sister, my granddaughters are definitely they're definitely the Never Beard contingent. You know, you have the Never Trump contingent. They are the Never Beard contingent.
Okay.
So there you go. All right. So enough about the beard. Let's talk a little bit more about delegates. Now, Politico had a story today, which I found very interesting, because it just
this convention is going to be wild. It's just got to be wild.
It really it's almost like an anticlimax. This Politico story. They say Donald Trump might lose as many as 100 delegates after the first ballot. I'm thinking, just 100?
Yeah, and I got to stop you there. I saw the headline this morning on Hot Air, and I click on it. And before even reading what you had to say, the first words that came out of my mouth, I swear, the first words, what, he's only going to lose 100?
Yeah.
And then I click on it, and what's the first three words you write? What?
Only 100?
100?
Only 100. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it depends on how many delegates he comes in there with. And by the way, all these calculations about, well, if Donald Trump loses 100 delegates, he's toast. I think if you go to a second ballot, it's going to be very difficult for Donald Trump to win. But I also think that it ain't going to be a slam dunk for Ted Cruz either. And look, Ted Cruz might lose some delegates after the first ballot too. I mean, I don't know if anybody's even asking that question.
Cruz is climbing, Trump is falling right now. If you were
True.
if you were looking at the weather forecast right now, and you're looking 30,000 feet, and you're seeing low pressure system, high pressure system, you're looking to see what's the dominating weather pattern right now. After the last 10, 15, 20 days Donald Trump has, and he's had a lot of bad days over the last 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, but this week has been very bad.
The last 5 days of Donald Trump have been horrific.
Just horrendous, and not just for Trump, but also for, I mean, let's face it, this was sort of a Todd Aiken moment with the abortion question.
This is a man right now who, I mean, his supporters are still his supporters. He hasn't bled off the core group around him. But you know who's been really unusually quiet trying to say about the bluster, oh yeah, Trump's going to win this, Trump's going to win that, Trump's going to win this demographic, he's going to do well, he's going to beat Hillary like a bongo drum. All the surrogates that come out and say, oh, you just wait, you've tried to write off Donald Trump before, he's going to do this, he's going to blow everybody
away. There's some
away.
truth to that, though.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is even the surrogates, after the abortion comment, the surrogates have been unusually subdued. There's been a couple out there trying to say, well, he just misspoke. By and large, online, especially on Twitter and a lot of other places, a lot of the energy, a lot of the angst, a lot of the anger, a lot of the screw anybody that's not for Donald Trump. We're loud, we're proud, we're gonna do this, we're gonna beat the hell out of you if you don't shut up and kneel before Zod. The energy out of that bubble, the air out of that bubble, you can palpably feel has come out of the room in the last 5 days since the debacle with Chris Matthews. That abortion answer.
It was a terrible answer. It was a terrible answer. And what it was...
It wasn't just terrible. It defeated everything that the pro-life movement has been trying to claim and refute from the left for the last 35 years. And he didn't just not answer the question right. He fed into the premise that the left says, which is a false premise.
The war on women. It's the war on women.
The war on women. What Chris Matthews, what happens if abortion's illegal again? Well, Chris, I think we have to go back to the days where women have to go in the back alleys and go to the district. No one has said that.
No. I mean,
that's not what would happen if Roe v. Wade got turned over.
And this is what the problem is with Trump.
He doesn't think. He doesn't think through issues.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
It's not about the issues for him. It's not even about the voters. It's about himself.
It's about the ego.
So this is the problem. This is what Trump said is sort of a reductio ad absurdum of what liberals think about conservatives who are pro-life.
Yes.
So he's
fed the monster that the left has been trying to imagine about us for 30 years.
I think this is what happened here is he thought that was what pro-life conservatives wanted to hear. he just assumed that that's what everybody's saying because he doesn't have any clue about the thing.
Or it's because he really has come at this from the left, and that's the only narrative that he has in his head is what the left has tried to imagine about us.
I think
so he's trying to become it.
I think we're saying similar things here, but what I'm saying is that I think he is a mile wide and an inch deep when it comes to understanding conservatives
all
and
with
Republicans. No depth whatsoever. He is basically taking the media caricature of, and it worked for him on immigration. Right? Because
correct.
It's the same thing on immigration, except it worked for him on immigration.
But here's the problem, and Trumpsters and Coulter, I know you're out there listening, and God love you, I know you're out there listening.
I kind of like to think Ann Coulter's out there listening.
Ann Coulter monitors anytime somebody says immigration or the wall, her little antenna go up.
I like Ann Coulter though; she's hilarious.
Hear me when I tell you this. You know Donald Trump's a train wreck. You said so yourself this week, saying, oh, my God, do you realize we have a mental case for a candidate?
It's like a 16-year-old. Yeah.
But at least we know he's right on, or at least he says the right things on immigration. Here's the problem. The same lack of depth that he showed on abortion, the same lack of depth is there on immigration, too.
It's on every issue. With the exception, I will say, with the exception of trade, in which he's actually pretty well versed.
If you really think that Donald Trump is going to carry out everything that he is saying on the stump with immigration, you are deluding yourself, because he's only saying what he thinks he has to say to secure that part of the fever swamp.
Yeah,
because he thinks it politically sells well. If he's going to do it, it's anybody's guess. My guess is he can do a 180 on you in a second, because he is not married to that issue. He's not married to any issue. The only thing he's married to is his own ego.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, there's still time for Ted Cruz to get ahead of him on delegates. I don't think there's time for Ted Cruz to actually get a majority of delegates.
I don't think
but
so
there
either.
is time for him to get ahead on delegates.
But for Donald Trump to get to 1237, the smartest pathway for him to get to 1237 was to win the majority in Wisconsin, which before last week, he was up by 2 over Ted Cruz in Wisconsin.
Yes.
And right now, he is cratering.
Yeah, he's down 10 in 2 different polls.
And by next week, the trend is, even with one of the polling outfits that tried to show it closer than 10, they're saying that the
PPP.
trend line, PPP's poll, said that it's not just that he's losing, but we're trying to find... It's so unstable right now, his support, that we fully expect by next week to see his numbers completely crater.
And okay, so let's talk a little bit about Wisconsin. Wisconsin's one of the states in my book, Going Red.
Absolutely.
GoingRedBook.com, by the way.
Wait. I got mine.
Well, actually, Dwayne's got his galley proof over here. This is actually Dwayne's hardcover. This is my gift to Dwayne, is this hardcover book that I carried into the studio here.
Does it have the extra Trump appendix in there?
Well, you know, the book isn't really about candidates. The book is about these communities.
I understand that, but Trump is going to be...
Trump is mentioned in the book. It's actually interesting. He's mentioned in the book.
What page?
Not in Wisconsin. So you don't have the index. I have the index.
I don't have the index.
Page 16 and page 187. But again, this is not a book about the candidates. It's a book about the communities in these states and how you have to win these places.
Correct.
In order to win these states.
And Donald Trump can't do it.
Right. So Wisconsin is one of the states that's in here.
Yes.
And a couple things about Wisconsin. And I didn't make this... I mean, obviously, because I'm not talking about Donald Trump in the book. I'm talking about Wisconsin. I'm talking about Brown County. But somebody today, and I can't remember who it was making an interesting point, which is that Wisconsin's different than some of the other places in the United States because the grassroots and the so-called establishment, I really dislike that term, by the way, but the so-called establishment have pretty much united in Wisconsin, and they've gotten things done. They got Act 10 put through. They've got the right to work put through. They've got voter ID put through. They have accomplished things by bringing grassroots and establishment together. So if you're coming in as an anti-establishment guy who's berating Scott Walker because he didn't raise taxes, and you are barking up the wrong tree in Wisconsin.
And Scott Walker has an approval rating in the state right now of what?
Well, among Republicans. Actually, statewide, it's not good.
I understand it,
But among Republicans, it's around 77%, I think.
And Wisconsin's a closed primary state, right?
That's a good question.
I think it is.
I think it might be. I'd have to look at that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
But it's winner take all in each of the congressional districts, and it's winner take all statewide.
Correct.
So you've got 42 delegates up there, and Ted Cruz is really on a path to win
all but
most
maybe three of them. I mean,
most of them.
He could win 39 of
Yes.
those easily. There may be one congressional district he loses in Madison, maybe. What? Now what?
Sargex. It's great having Sargex in the chat room. I said, I really hate the term establishment. And Sargex says, that's okay. I'm sure serial killers don't like that term either. Sargex, you have to have your own show. We got to get you podcasting. That's what we got to do.
So I'm looking at, as an extension of Going Red, I looked at Larry Sabato's great crystal ball site last night.
Yep.
And he's got his electoral college map, right?
Yes.
And he had it as of a year ago, before we started this clown car. He had it the way we all have it, which is going into it, the cake is baked. The Democrats are sitting on about 247, which means my whole thinking was if Hillary Clinton spent 100% of her time in Florida and wallpapered the state with cash in Florida, she's already at 270, and this whole thing's over with. It's an academic exercise. Republicans are sitting with 206. The toss-ups are the same 7 toss-ups they've always been. Nevada, Colorado, Iowa, Ohio, Virginia, Florida, and New Hampshire. Those are the 7 swing states. Now,
I'm sorry, run those by me again?
Nevada, Colorado, Iowa, Ohio, Virginia, Florida, and New Hampshire are the, quote, swing states.
Yeah, I would say
everything else
Nevada and Iowa, too. They're not in my book, but I would say, yeah, definitely Nevada and Iowa.
Everything else are leans one way or the other.
Yes.
Okay? The true toss-ups are those 7 states. Those are the, quote, battlegrounds going into 2016. Here's the problem. And this isn't just Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. This is the effect of Donald Trump on the campaign cycle and the effect this has had on the general electorate, meaning their view of the Republican Party right now, as it stands, assuming that Donald Trump's going to be the nominee, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
He now has a map where there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 states where there have been movements from, lean something to likely something or toss up to leaning something. All 14 of those moves have been to the left.
Yeah.
The swing states of, like I said, Nevada, Colorado, Iowa, Ohio, Virginia, Florida, and New Hampshire, all 7 of those swing states are gone. Those are now, according to Larry Sabato, in the camp of Hillary Clinton. As it stands right now, with 0 toss-ups, he sees the map, the Electoral College map, at Democrats with 347 electoral votes. That is getting smashed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's getting run over.
That's getting run over by a car, stopped, backed the car back up.
Couple things about this, because I want to be careful about making predictions at this level with the polling at this point, because we have a very fractious primary going on. There's a lot of people who have drawn lines in the sand that will gradually erode after the convention. So
totally understand.
You will get some of that. You will get some of that back after the convention. The question is, how far do you have to go to get there? And again, as I see it, there's really 2 paths to get from the 2008 and 12 model to a Republican victory in 2016. One of those I lay out in Going Red, right? GoingRedBook.com comes out on April 12th. That is picking up the swing states that we won in 2004 and 2000. That's Florida, that's Virginia, that's keeping North Carolina, which we barely won the last time, New Hampshire, Ohio, especially Ohio, Colorado, and picking up Wisconsin, which should be a slam dunk now for Republicans. They broke the union power in Wisconsin, and you should be able to at least compete and force the Democrats to fight for that. Or you can go through what's called the Rust Belt path, which is to pick up Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Iowa, and I know I'm missing one in there, but picking those states up, and that gets you, if you do that plus Iowa, you get right to 270. The problem is that there's no evidence that Donald Trump is going to be competitive in those states. No evidence in Pennsylvania. There's been a lot of polling on this, and he polls poorly in Pennsylvania. He's polling poorly in Wisconsin right now. He's got overall 70% disapproval rating, or unfavorable rating, I should say, because it's not a disapproval, it's a favorability rating. He's got a 70% unfavorability rating among white males. It's 51% unfavorable, and that's his constituency, right? That's the constituency we keep hearing about, is that, the white males or the white working class males are reasserting themselves in the political process, and that's why Donald Trump is doing so well. But what he's getting is a percentage of a percentage in the Republican Party.
Yep.
You take that out to a general election,
He gets smashed.
you get smashed, and that's what Larry Sabato is warning about.
Now-
And Sabato, if I remember correctly, because you mentioned this to me, Sabato was saying, "Hey, look, we're in the business of trying to make this fun and tight, right?"
Yeah, I've got it right in front of me. Let me do this. So he's got a map. If Trump's a nominee versus Hillary, Hillary gets 347 electoral votes. Republicans or Trump gets 191. That's as bad as we've ever been in your or my lifetime.
Yeah.
The states that have moved, if Trump's a nominee, all things being equal today, and again, Donald Trump has a 100% name ID, right? There's no reinventing Donald Trump after the election.
No.
I mean, who in this country doesn't know who Donald Trump is? Realistically.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. Same thing with Hillary Clinton, by the way.
But that's why I'm saying a lot of this, people try and write off these head-to-head matchups and this much analytics now because, well, nobody really knows who our people are. It's all inside baseball. They're going to reinvent themselves after the election in the fall, and people are going to get used to them on a general election stage. Everybody knows who Trump is. You can't go 5 minutes in an airport without seeing Trump say something stupid on a TV monitor in the airport, right?
Right.
Colorado has gone from a toss-up to leans Democratic. Florida has gone from a toss-up to leans Democratic. Indiana has gone from safe Republican to likely Republican. Iowa, toss-up to leans Democratic. The second district in Nebraska. Remember, Nebraska, they kind of go their electoral votes by congressional.
Yeah,
district.
they do. Maine does the same thing, yes.
Nebraska, too. Likely Republican is now down to leans Republican. Nevada's gone from toss-up to leans Democratic. New Hampshire, toss-up to leans Democratic. New Mexico has gone from leans Republican to leans Democrat. North Carolina has gone from leans Republican to leans Democrat. I'm sorry, New Mexico was likely Democrat to safe Democrat. Ohio, toss-up to leans Democratic. Oregon, likely Democrat to safe Democrat. Pennsylvania, the Great White Whale, likely Democrat to safe Democrat.
Safe Democrat, yeah.
Virginia, toss-up to leans Democratic. Wisconsin, we were just talked about part of the Rust Belt. Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
Leans Democratic to likely Democratic. Now, here's what Larry Sabato writes. And again, Larry Sabato, he tries to shoot straight, but I think you and me would probably say if we got to see him actually pull the lever in behind the booth,
yeah,
he'd probably pull it for the R more times than not, I think. I think he probably leans...
Possibly. He's a good guy to talk to,
He's
though.
a good guy to talk to. He's straight up. Election analysts prefer close elections, but there was nothing we could do to make this one close. Clinton's total is 347 electoral votes, which includes 190 safe, 57 likely, and 100 that lean in her direction. Over the years, we've put much emphasis on the 7 super swing states. Well, they're all gone. If this happens.
Well, that's most of the same states that I have in going red. So, look, we've gone over this before. I think it's just worth emphasizing that Wisconsin really should be a state where
it should be
where we could. And this is the key. First off, he was originally expected to win Wisconsin. If you look at the
he was ahead as of a week ago.
If you look at the front-loading HQ projection, Donald Trump was on his path to 1279, but that included the 42 delegates from Wisconsin.
Correct.
Without the 42 delegates from Wisconsin, he's at 1237, according to that projection. And I think Cruz picks up momentum and starts taking out some of the rest of this. Now, that's what I talk about in my post. You can read that in the post. This was a state, though, that really required a different kind of campaign. And I think what you're seeing here is that Donald Trump either didn't recognize that or was incapable of changing up and offering a campaign that's specific to a state. And that is one of the big keys in winning in a general election is you have to, and this is something Republicans did not do in 2008, when it probably wouldn't have mattered anyway. Let's face it. But they didn't do it in 2012 either, and it might have mattered in 2012 because I still think that was a winnable election.
Right.
And they went with this national messaging, top-down, 30,000-foot thing, just slogan, ran the same ads in every single state and lost because they didn't do what Obama did, which was to get to know each of these communities, understand how those issues played out, and tailor the messaging so that people knew that the Obama campaign understood how this was affecting their lives. Because when you get right down to it, elections are about the voters more than they are about the candidates.
Clearly.
And Obama knew that, and that's the reason why he won both presidential elections. He really shouldn't have won the second one. All right, I want to move on to a different story, though, because I think this is fascinating. We've been talking all this whole time about well, not the whole time, because we've been talking about the move to morning drive for you guys. We've been talking a lot about Donald Trump and the Republican Party and delegates. News breaking today about Hillary Clinton. And this is interesting. I mean, this is really,
Yes,
I
is.
think, interesting because
It is.
if you've been following the saga of the secret server, as I call this,
As much as you can, because under an FBI investigation, you can't really know a lot about what's going on in it.
You can't know a lot about what's going on in it, but if you know that it's going on, the FBI has actually acknowledged that it's going on. Well, today the State Department did something interesting because the State Department has been doing an internal review of this whole thing since the
State Department's been trying to say there's no there there. The White House initially tried to say there was no there there.
Well,
They've been
the State Department actually has been a little bit more nuanced than that. The State Department has been saying, we're looking into whether there's a there there. We haven't seen anything yet, but we're looking into this. We're doing an internal review. Well, today the internal review ended because they need to defer to the FBI. Now, the FBI has been investigating this for a year, right? Almost a year. Or maybe even a little over a year, because it was March 1st, I think, when Hillary, of last year, when she had that press conference. All of a sudden today, I'll read this from The Hill. The State Department has halted its internal review of whether Hillary Clinton violated classification rules with her private email server, deferring to the FBI's investigation. 2 months ago, the department launched an internal review of 22 of the former Secretary of State's emails, which had been classified at the highest level of top secret and weren't released to the public even in redacted form. At issue was whether the emails should have been classified at the time they were sent, or whether the information had merely become classified over time. Well, first off, let me explain something. Nothing becomes classified over time. If you're talking about,
it's classified the minute
it was classified when it was born.
Yes.
The information was classified. And you can tell this, by the way, because when they went to classify her messages, they weren't classified at the date they were reviewed. They were classified at the date they were created, meaning that the information was classified at the time that email message was composed.
She's trying to maintain the myth that it was never obviously stamped, and she didn't recognize it was classified until well after the fact, so it doesn't count.
Yes.
The problem is that's not what the law says.
Yes. So we already know that. We already know that. Ruth Marcus had an interesting, if somewhat clueless column, and I like Ruth Marcus. I normally like Ruth Marcus, but she wrote this thing. What if there is no indictment, and people are.
There may not be an indictment.
There may not be, but
I think a criminal referral is pretty certain, or highly likely.
I think it's becoming more likely, and this story sort of tips a hand to it. There is no reason for the State Department to end its probe unless the FBI is talking about bringing a criminal referral, in which case they can't be seen as interfering with that process.
Because they don't want to get burned in the process. I mean, this is kind of a rats deserting the ship type of move.
I think the State Department has decided that it wants to get the hell out of the way.
Yes.
I think that they see something very bad coming down the road, and they want to get the hell out of the way of it. And otherwise, there's no reason to...
Which is curious to me, because there was also a little reported on story a day or two ago that said that James Comey had been personally briefing in the last few weeks more extensively Loretta Lynch at DOJ. on this case.
Yes.
He's been briefing her more with increasing frequency on what's going on with this. So it sounds to me like it's coming to a head, and perhaps Loretta Lynch may have put a little call in over to John Kerry and said X nay on the investigation A.
Well, yeah, possibly. But I mean, I think that this shows that this is progressing beyond the security review aspect of this. And if the FBI, there's really no reason for the State Department to end its review and defer to the FBI unless there's something really serious going on.
Because they can just call it in review and extend it forever.
They can. And that's kind of what we thought that they were doing.
Running out the clock.
Here's the thing. This is something else that came up over this past week, is that we found out the number of agents that are assigned to this investigation. 147 agents.
Yeah.
147 agents. That is significantly more agents than were assigned to the Robert Hanssen espionage probe. There was about 100 agents assigned to the Robert Hanssen espionage probe. Robert Hanssen was the worst spy, the worst mole the FBI has ever had. It's a fascinating case, by the way. If you want to know more about the Robert Hanssen case, I would suggest doing some research on it, because Hanssen was a head case.
Look, there was emails on her server that she was trading in that actually named CIA assets abroad by name and actually referred to material that came from those assets on an unsecured setting.
Yes.
That violates the holy of holies.
It's 1920. It's 1924. It's 10,001 sort of by default.
You can't do that.
It's 793.
People go to jail for that
for a long time.
For a long time, you cannot do that. And get away with it.
I think I remember reading this about a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said internally in the State Department, the message has always been, you do it once and you're fired. You do it twice and you're prosecuted. And
well, the rule is, if you leave something out on your desk that doesn't belong there, you get read the Riot Act. If you do it a second time, you're fired. If that leaves your desk and it goes home.
That's what it was, yes.
And it leaves your desk and you bring it home, you're prosecuted.
Right. So you have 147 FBI agents on this investigation. There's something happening there. If all they were doing was doing a security review and they didn't think that there was going to be criminal charges being brought out of this, maybe they'd put a couple dozen on it just to expedite it out of there. If they're looking at 147 agents being tied up on this thing, that's a hell of an investment to come back and say, well, there's nothing going on. I mean, any FBI director that applied that many resources to a nothing burger would be and should be asked to resign. And so, so that's something to keep in mind. But that
I don't think Ken Starr's office was that big.
No. Ken Starr's office was nowhere near that big.
Right.
Well, they didn't find much either.
Well.
All right, so we're almost out of time because we didn't broadcast the first 10 minutes of this show. But
we've been going an hour. You just only got to see 45 minutes.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, you missed out. That was a great 11 minutes that you missed out on. But the Hugh Hewitt Show for the final time. What? Well, you don't want to play this now, do you?
It's a long bed. I can play it in the background.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because we want to talk about what's coming up tonight on the Hugh Hewitt Show, the very last evening show.
We can do that. I should be able to tell you what that is. In fact, I can. We are going to be talking to Harold Kronk, the director of God's Not Dead 2, the new movie that's out
Nice.
today. We will be talking to John Kasich's going to be on today. You ever heard of him?
I've heard of John Kasich.
Chuck Todd.
Chuck Todd, always on Friday afternoons.
Brian Westbury.
Nice.
On Friday afternoons.
Nice.
And we will be talking about the political stuff with Dr. Larry Arnn. And the conversations with Arnn lately have been really fascinating.
Yes.
Because Arnn's like, he lived and breathed this stuff as far as a lot of the early conventions and some of the... the 1860 convention with Lincoln was kind of a contested convention.
It was.
And he knows every minute of what happened there. because he has studied Lincoln quite extensively.
Yes, he has.
He's got a lot of really interesting things to say about today. So that's going to take place as well.
So that's coming up in 59 minutes right here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. You can find that on the Universe, HUGHNIVERSE.com, the troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt listeners.
Yep.
I'm a member. You should be a member. The Universe is going to continue
Nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
We still all the weekend stuff I have, all the music programs I have. Michael Patrick Tracy Show, Conservative LA Radio. That's still going to take place.
He's in the chat room right now, by the way.
He's in the chat room right now. In fact, we're going to be doing kind of two of his shows tonight. One's going to be on the music of Graham Parsons, and then the music of Warren Zevon.
So Warren Zevon. What?
Both
lawyers,
really,
guns, and money.
Both really good writers, and neither one of them, that, to our thinking, hate women. So that's
nice troll out there.
Yeah. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Got to do what you got to do. That's coming up in
all request shows. So going to continue on Saturday nights. Tribbles, they send me emails of what they want to hear. I go find what they want to hear. The most bizarre collection of music you want. Make it wall-to-wall requests. Queue it all up, and then watch from afar in the chat room as everybody pounds the hell out of each other as far as what their musical tastes are. It's a grand time, actually. So
you got to play Timothy by the Boys. Do that one for me tomorrow.
You got to send me the email.
I'll send you the email. Timothy by the Boys. It's the best song ever about cannibalism.
Send me the email. I will get it queued up. That's fine. All new Dwayne FM show Sunday night, and then on Monday at the crack of dawn, we will be taking over the airwaves. What's going to happen, by the way, as far as long term, because the tribbles that are used to the chat room experience when we're on live 3 to 6 West Coast, they were like, well, but we're not going to get up that early. Is there any way we can still keep the chat room and keep the community thing? So what we're going to do is I'm going to record the morning show when we stream it. We're going to record it, and for the Universe, we're going to play back the show at its old time, take the commercials out of it, and compress it so that it plays back in a 2-hour window, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
So don't get the replay, and they can still hang in the chat room and throw hammers at you and everything from afar. And then I'm going to take 1 week off, and I'll talk to you about this afterwards off air, but I'm going to try and figure out how to do the after show from home and broadcast from home.
Oh, nice.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do the after show now an hour early from 5 to 6 after the replay of Hugh's show, and try and do an after show from like 5 to 6 West Coast time and keep that whole thing going.
Cool.
And see where we go.
Well, so folks, I mean, nothing changes except the time and the ability to drive the narrative and make news.
All the new good stuff that can come out of this, we're taking advantage of, and I'm doing my best to try and not lose a lot of the old stuff. So we'll
see. So again, it's coming up in now 56 minutes. If you're not a member of the Universe, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you guys. We've been talking about the Universe for years now. I'm a member, and I'm cheap.
Join, losers.
Join or cry. Join or cry. There you go. So if you're not a member of the Universe, you can spin the AM radio dial. Dwayne, what should they do if they can't find it on the AM radio dial?
What should they do? I guess they could. Oh, it's got to be something to do with the FBI. What can they do with the FBI? They can get it.
They can peel off a couple of the agents?
No, they can't peel. All those agents, they're committed. I'm not. There's you can do a lot of bad things right now because the FBI seems to be allocating a lot of resources.
I think you're right, but you know what you can do is you can convince another AM radio manager to become unbound and vote for Hugh Hewitt show. So there you go. You can do that. You can do that. You may have to go to 2 ballots to do that, but you can do that. You should do that if you can't find it in the AM radio dial. But if you can't do that, you can go to HughHewitt.com, or you can listen to the audio stream of the Hugh Hewitt show. Tonight, the final night from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 to 8 on the Central Time, 3 to 6 out here on the left coast, and be sure to tune that in. All right, I will. And no, I'm not automatically a member. I actually signed up. I'm actually a dues-paying member of the Universe because it's worth it to me to have that content available. All right, so won't have any Ed Morrissey shows next week because I'll be guest hosting on Relevant Radio. And so that's
fine because I can probably use the week to make sure I get my body adjusted to whatever the hell my body's going to have to get adjusted
We're going to give Dwayne a break.
And then the following week, hopefully I'll have this thing down.
Following week, I'll actually be a guest on Hugh's show on Tuesday morning.
Absolutely.
Talking about Going Red, the 2 million voters who will elect the next president and how conservatives can win them. GoingRedBook.com comes out on April 12th, so we're going to be doing that interview on the on the release date, which is great.
Yep.
And so stay tuned for all of that. I want to thank Dwayne Generalissimo Patterson.
Adam,
say hi.
Daniel's out there.
Daniel's out there, and I want to thank everybody for letting me play here at the Palace, the Hugh Hewitt Palace
Before the wrecking ball hits.
Before the wrecking ball hits. All right, so we're going to wrap up now. Thanks for everything. Keep tuning in. Have a great weekend, and don't miss a minute of the Ed Morrissey Show, whenever it is.